Nordic Baltic Textiles Transition Group webinar, which is held in a collaboration between Lifestyle and Design Cluster, Nordic Circular Hotspot, and funded by Nordic Innovation. My name is Frederik Thrane. I work for Lifestyle and Design Cluster as Head of Circular Economy here in Copenhagen in Denmark. And the webinar we're about to begin is anchored in the forthcoming Danish National Action Plan for Textiles, along with presentations of strategic national initiatives from both Finland and Sweden in order to anchor the conversation in a regional perspective. And we'll be recording the webinar. We actually already started. We have a fantastic lineup with us here today. We have 6 speakers, we have 4 presentations, and we have a moderated conversation where we ask the important question: what can we learn from national strategic initiatives from a regional development and collaboration perspective? However, we only have 90 minutes today, so we have a lot of content and very little time. Therefore, we need to follow the agenda quite rigorously. That's also the reason why we started straight away and not giving a couple of minutes for the remainders to enter. And if we stay on schedule, we will have a few minutes after each presentation for questions. So I hope that you'll see this webinar as a mucky dice of condensed, super interesting information conveyed by some of the brightest minds in the Nordic Baltic region, and as a first step in a series of Nordic Baltic Textile Transition Group conversations that'll be extended. But I think we should actually not waste any more time listening to me, but getting right into the agenda. I'll share my screen so you can see what we're up to today, and then I think we'll dive straight into to the presentation. So the agenda, welcome by me. That's happening now. Then right after this, we'll have the introduction to the forthcoming National Danish Action Plan for Textiles. At 9:30, we'll hear about Finnish strategic initiatives, and at 9:50, Swedish strategic initiatives, and 10:10, a moderated conversation with the presenters that'll be moderated by Callie Kent. And then we will start rounding off 10:25 and end at 10:30. And the National Action Plan, or the forthcoming National Action Plan for textiles here in Denmark, will be presented by my CEO, Bettina Simonsen from Lifestyle and Design Cluster, along with Else Skjold, assistant professor and PhD at the Royal Academy here in Denmark, and workstream leader for textiles at Trace, along with Marie Busk, who's Chief Sustainability Officer at Danish Fashion and Textile. And the group of the 3 of them, along with Annette Juhl from Trace, they constitute the consortium group for the forthcoming Danish National Action Plan on Textiles, and they'll tell you much more about that right now. And I very much hope that you're on the call, Marie, Bettina, and Else, because I'd like to ask you to take over the screen and the presentation now.
Thank you, Frederik. I am on the call and I will share my slides in a bit. I know that Else, she's struggling a little bit with Teams, and I have not yet heard anything from Bettina, but I assume that she's on the call. But yes, anyway, I'm the one to start. Sorry.
And my apologies. Before Maria starts, I'd encourage every one of you to turn off your microphone and put on your camera. That way it makes it a lot more enjoyable for the presenters to present, because they can see who they're presenting to. So if you're able to, please do so. And I'll mute my mic now, Marie.
Thank you, Frederik. And I'm the one to start, at least, so I'll just slowly start. So yes, the Danish National Action Plan. I'm just going to say a little bit about the background and the context and the mandate that we have, and then we will dive more into the actual initiatives, and there Bettina and Else will support me. In terms of the process leading up to the forthcoming action plan, I think it's fair to say that from various stakeholder sides, there's been a policy push that we in Denmark should have a national action plan mirroring the EU textile strategy, but focusing in on what we should do in Denmark. And in 2025, we managed to get political support for that. We managed to get 40 million kroner. There's a sound. Someone could kindly mute themselves. I think it's fine now. Thank you. We managed to get 40 million Danish kroner prioritized on the Finance Act, covering the period from 2025 to 2028. It was on the Finance Act, and taken from the Finance Act, the Danish EPA interpreted the Finance Act formulation and defined a mandate and the scope for what should be in and what should be prioritized in the National Action Plan. So there was a bidding process, and Trace, which Frederik just referred to, and Lifestyle and Design Cluster and DMNT, we decided to go together, establish a consortium, and applied for the process, and luckily we won. So that's where we are right now in the consortium. Just a few words on the scope so that you can see that, because it's very broad and it's very defining for the initiatives that we've decided to focus on. So the first is the reduction of textile production and consumption, and that's sort of an overarching ambition and aim of the action plan. Then it's support for competitive circular business models. 3, support for an efficient market for textile waste. And 4th, promotion of circular skills and competencies. So it's very broad, and in a little while I'll just show you how we have tried to build, as you can say, a framework, a skeleton for how to meet this mandate and this scope that has been required from the Danish EPA. But just a few words about the consortium and the governance setup. As you can see, we are 3 partners, and we each contribute with what we are good at. So Lifestyle and Design Cluster, they are the overall responsible organization for the project management and the economy, for coordinating and for driving the secretariat. Trace, they support with the research foundation into the and they are also responsible for developing and applying the impact framework, and for actually being able to measure the overall impact of the National Action Plan. And we are responsible for the, you can say, the political aspects of the action plan, but also for, of course, businesses engagement, as we all are. In addition to us as a consortium, we have a steering committee, and we have as an advisory board. And for us, it's been extremely important. It's also been part of the mandate that we very broadly engage with all stakeholders in the ecosystem of textile. So we have researchers, businesses, civil society organizations, public procurement, education, museums, etc., to make sure that we address all the aspects of the ecosystem. Now, this is the 3 tracks that we have. If you recall the scope and the mandate from the Danish EPA, we interpreted that into 3 tracks that are mutually interdependent, and that form sort of the overall framework of the National Action Plan. So the first is the industry circular transition. There we have a focus for supporting companies in complying with increasing regulatory requirements and developing new business models. Then we have the circular infrastructure, and that's about developing the circular textile infrastructure in Denmark by forging public-private partnerships, by preparing for the extended producer responsibility for companies, or for textile, sorry. And then we have the 3rd pillar, or the 3rd track, which is about textile education and skills development. Upskilling Danes' knowledge about textiles, repair and reuse through education networks and nationwide campaigns. And these 3 tracks are, of course, because we're talking about a system change, these 3 tracks are extremely important because they depend upon each other. So I'm very conscious about the time, and I don't think I will spend more words. Just a final word about where we are in the process, because I forgot to say that. We were about to launch the final action plan last week. However, due to the election that we had about a month ago in Denmark and the current negotiations, we have been asked to postpone the launch. So we are still in process of developing through the engagement with our steering committee and our advisory board. And we hope to be able to launch it sometime after the summer break, sometime in September. So now we will dive a little bit into the 3 tracks that covers a total of 9 initiatives. And Bettina from Lifestyle and Design Cluster, she will talk about track 1 and the industry's circular transition. So Bettina, I hope that you are with us now and able to
Yes. Thank you so much.
Great. I can't see anything, so that's why.
I'm here. So I'm hoping also Elsa gets on. Anyway, I would like to take over and deep a little bit into track 1. As Marie was saying, this is the brands, the industry's contribution to reduce impact. As you heard, the overall aim of this National Textile Action Plan is to reduce impact. Track 1 is where we work with the industry and the brands. And number 1 is to do preparation and capacity building by strengthening Danish brands' readiness for upcoming regulation, to turn this early compliance into a source of competitive advantages. So we would like to get them really addressed and competence developed so they are right and ready to meet the regulation when it comes. Number 2 is the Danish sector agreement for textiles. As you might know, it's actually our 4th year. And for you who hasn't heard about it before, I think we also have talked a few times in this forum about it. It's the Danish fashion textile industry that's come together by agreeing to 3 common goals in order to speed up the circular transition. To do so, they are signatures of these goals, but also they are committed to report data on the progress. And we do an annual reporting on this data so we can see what are the challenges and what is the collective progress of the Danish brands industries. And the signatures, they represent about 60 or more of the Danish market. And we would like to use that platform for them to commit even more to this national action plan, textile action plan. And in doing so, we would like to expand the participation, increase the participation, and accelerating experimentation with circular business models, because we have started in the textile sectorial collaboration. We have started experimenting with the circular business model, and also working with the knowledge institutions and universities and so on. But we would like to expand that even further. So this would be the area in the plan where we experiment with circular business models. We would also like to scale the focus on data, as Marie also was talking about, to prepare for the EPR and digital product passport, but also using the data we already have collected to drive sharper insights, benchmarking, and industry-wide performance improvements. So we would like to use that platform to get a really good base of data from the industry and to the industry. Initiative number 3, establishing a repair infrastructure for retail brands and consumers. It is to work with repairs on a strategic level. We would like to advancing a scale or already there, or maybe a new thought of a scale of repair infrastructure to lower barriers for both brands and consumers. Repairs is positioned not only as a service, but also as a mechanism to extend product life cycles, and to support more circular value creation. So this is a way of doing a national, hopefully that's the ambitions anyway, infrastructure for repair, in order to make it both cheaper, but also easier to use and get in touch and get prices and so on. So that is track number 1 in the initiative there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bettina. And then I will go to track 2, but just an important piece of information. The idea is not that we in the consortium will be doing all this work. The idea is that we will act as project responsible for each of the initiatives, but then that we will put it out in the open so that organizations or individuals will be able to apply for funding for driving the various projects. Now we go to the circular infrastructure, and that's that contains also three different projects or initiatives, and I think the aim of that is to start building the circular infrastructure in Denmark when it comes to textiles, and that's a very difficult task. So what we will start with is to update the textile flow analysis that we had back in 2018 in Denmark, and based on the findings of that, we will analyze the opportunities for establishing public-private rehubs for textiles in Denmark. And that will be rehubs both for recycling textiles and investment cases for that, but it will also be rehubs for reselling or leasing or reusing textiles. It all depends on what will come out of the analysis that will point to where do we have the biggest volumes, where do we have the challenges, who owns what in Denmark. So it's a very much an exploratory part of the action plan, because we simply need to have more data on the consumption and the type of textiles that we have in Denmark before being able to, you can say, to implement the actual solutions. But that's part of that's the circular infrastructure. But then cross-cutting this is, of course, supporting the implementation of the Danish EPR for textiles. We know that will be coming, and we will have to have the system up and running in April 2028. So the idea is also to identify what are the needs and what do we need to do in Denmark when it comes to this. And then secondly, establishing green public procurement as a market driver. We know that the public is a big consumer, you can say, or big user of textiles. How do we ensure that the public take their responsibility? We also know that we have big volumes in terms of very textiles that is easier to either reuse or recycle within the public. So the idea is to use green public procurement as a market driver. And now we will move to track 3, where hopefully we have Else Skjold with us.
You do. Hello and good morning.
Fantastic.
And apologies, I had to restart my computer to make Teams work. But I will tell you about the third track, which is very much addressing civil society and education. So the first initiative is is addressing the fact that for the past decades we have been gearing education towards not producing in Denmark and definitely not catering into a circular textile sector. So looking into the development with EPR and other schemes in the EU, which would require new types of candidates, new types of skills and competencies for our graduates from our textile educations, it has become very clear that we need to upgrade the teaching competences. So this initiative is basically about developing teaching materials for educators that can be applied broadly across various textile educations in Denmark. Next one is how we know that increasingly citizens are on their own hand beginning to do all sorts of activities with textiles that can be dyeing with local plants. It can be driving small microspinneries. It can be a lot of things seems to be going on, and as is well known in green transition work, citizen-led engagement is typically more powerful than top-down demands for asking citizens to do something. So we would like to anchor this in the Danish textile museums, also addressing the cultural heritage and what we used to have of plants and techniques and skills and production. So this has a two-side track. The one is a knowledge track where we would like museums to travel around in Denmark and teach textile skills and teach about fibers. This was done more than 100 years ago when we also had to transition the Danish sector. And on the other hand, it will be micro donations for small scale activities where even one sewing machine can mean a lot. And by making calls with these micro donations, which the Tuborg Foundation has had, they have done it for a while with good results. We're also hoping to harvest knowledge about what type of activities are going on, how widespread is it, and what is it about, and how can we support it. Lastly, and this was also a requirement in the mandate from the ministry, there will be a national campaign, and with the campaign we are now trying to inform the call. So we are hoping to get some very clever communication applicants who can tell us how to communicate what is going on in the action plan and what kind of you can say a slogan or message we wish to send out to all Danes. So hopefully this will reach as many Danes as possible and is not to be understood as necessarily more traditional consumer campaigns where we tell people what to do, but hopefully to engage people in this plan, to make them feel that they are perhaps part of the plan and that they are maybe after this a little more interested in what textiles are and how they can better use them, repair them, all sorts of things. So that was in short about track 3. Thank you for listening.
Thank you to the three of you. You're right on time. We actually half a minute. We have a half a minute to spare, so we'll open up for questions now briefly. And I'd like, when you ask a question, to tell us where you're from. Of course, turn on your camera and then ask your question. So just raise your hand while the first people consider. And there is a question in the chat, Else, for you, I think, whether we cooperate with Fibershed Denmark. So maybe we can start out with that.
Hello. So, hi Tone. So we are, of course, in very close dialogue with Fibershed Denmark. I have been in contact with them since they started, and they are very much one of the initiatives that we really hope will apply. For I know they really want to start a spinning mill. Of course, our donations will not be super big, but they will be as kind of a seed funding. But what we really hope will happen is that we can help make these activities more visible also to other funding schemes. So this is also to be seen as kind of a more beyond these 40 million Danish kroner, which is basically not a lot. It is, of course, the general idea to point at things going on in Denmark that can be supported beyond the funding. So this could also involve like making this more visible to other funding schemes that could be relevant. So I hope this answers your question, Tone. There are many others. Fibershed are not the only ones, but it is these sorts of very small scale and local initiatives that are typically involved with textile heritage, old fibers, old techniques, stuff like this. So yes.
Thank you,
I could
Ilse.
also just have said yes, but now you got the
This
long
was
answer.
much better. And I see we have a question from one of our Estonian participants from Dace. Please present yourself, Dace, and take the mic and the camera.
I'm not Estonian, I'm Latvian.
Ah, that is embarrassing.
But
I'm very
that
sorry.
is also probably trying to raise the flag, since we have a national day today, marking 36 years since Latvia regained independence from Soviet occupation. So that's why not many Latvians in the room, everybody else is on holidays. But I have actually two short questions, if I may. One was on the reduction of textile consumption and production that you had in the scope. So I wonder if there was what kind of political debate was around that, because in some countries it's pretty difficult to swallow. And the other, did you also in your work, and thank you for the presentation, it was very interesting to see the scope of all of what you're planning to do, consider the outside world? I mean, it sounded a bit Danish centered, so but you're not an island isolated. You're also in the Nordic Baltic region and also wider than that. So are you considering it somehow in your work? So thank you.
Do you want to answer that, Marie, or was it something else?
It was actually something else, so I think we should go straight to the answers to the question.
Ilse and Bettina, will you answer that in unison?
Yes, I can start with the last question. That, of course, the mandate is a national action plan for Denmark. So that is what we need to solve. And with that said, I think we all look at this as kind of an example case for how you can start such a process, because of course there are conditions and traditions and mechanisms in Denmark that are unique to our country, but you can apply how we work maybe in another setting. So it's also, we need to find out something before we can maybe invite more broadly. But I think this this initiative with what we are having this meeting about today, where we meet in the Nordic countries, could be very well be a place where we can exchange what we learn and then see if we can develop it in a larger setting. So of course, with the reduction, it's very important to state that this was a requirement from the ministry. They had this as a very important pillar, and they said that this was like mandatory. We need to show when we are finished that we have reduced something. And of course, with almost very little money and stuff like this, we have tried to look at where are there some opportunities where we can really fast scale reduction of volume. And we are of course looking very much as a green procurement where a lot of waste is going on. And we are also in the sector collaboration looking at this. So what we will do with the trace impact framework that will measure is to try to firstly make a baseline of what would be needed in the ideal world. What do we need to take into consideration? And it could include many things and externalities like microplastics and boundary effects and whatever you have it. And thereby we can assess with some deliveries from the projects that are very concrete and hands-on and quantitative. We can look at them and then transfer them into estimations of how much did we save in terms of materials or CO2 or fossil-based fibers or whatever we have. So it would be how much can we do with the 40 million and the 3 years, and where do we point to obvious places where we could really scale this reduction up and the volume down.
And respectfully to the other participants, we're above time, so we need to move on to the finished presentations. However, Kali, I hope you will bring some of the remaining elements into the moderated conversation later on, and also for you, Bettina and Marie, please hold on to your comments. So without further ado, now we will move from Denmark to Finland, where we have two great presenters with us. Starting with Emilia Jetta, who is Chief Advisor on Sustainability and Circular Economy from Finnish Textile and Fashion. So, Emilia, the screen is yours.
Thank you, and great to be part of this discussion. And I have to say that it's really interesting to hear about the Danish action plan and also giving the opportunity to reflect on this from our perspective. I need to say that in Finland we don't have one single national roadmap for textiles yet. Instead, we are still in the phase where the transition is driven by a combination of different initiatives, projects, and policy development. So rather than just presenting one roadmap, I maybe will be sharing the industry perspectives, but what we see that actually enables the transition in practice, and one of the issues there is also then to develop a national plan. But with further ado, so just a brief introduction to the Finnish Textile and Fashion Association, which is a relatively small but highly export-oriented and innovation-driven sector. At the moment, we see strong development here in Finland, particularly in technical textile, circular solutions, and then also new materials. Maybe moving forward to the fact that textiles are part of our everyday life, and not only in fashion but also in healthcare, infrastructure, and industrial applications. So one needs to say that the transition is how we look at this. So it's not only about one sector, but more about a broader systematic shift and from the industry perspective, then again, this is where these kind of national initiatives and action plans become critical. So in order to understand how these actually enable this system level transition that is very much needed also here in Finland. And going to the transition and how we see the issues and what kind of industry priorities we have identified, some of them really similar with the Danish ones. So we see that there's a few initiatives that stand out that actually will enable this transition. So and this also needs to be supported through different means from resource perspective to also then regulative initiative. So first, growth and sustainability, we see that this goes hand in hand and both depend on exports and continued investment in research and innovation. Then we see that also this predictable regulation is critical and needs to be identified as that also, especially with the upcoming EU regulations. So companies need support, clarity, and consistency to actually make the investments needed. And third, aligned with the previous one is that we need to have a level playing field, and this is increasingly important, especially when we talk about the global e-commerce at the moment. And then we see that public procurement will also and can play a role in creating demand and supporting, for example, more resilient value chains. And then we also see that we need to have actions in place where skills and labor markets are supported and seen as means for long-term competitiveness. But so these we see that are the priorities that we need to focus on and also deliver some more tangible issues to for example, or for the national government. But we also see that these are really important and highly relevant from a regional perspective. So how we can also collaborate on these issues. Maybe then deep diving into the enabling sustainable growth through policy and market development. As this is something that I work quite a lot with. So we see at the moment and that the most these are the most critical enabling factors and where actually national initiatives can really make a difference. So so on regulation side, we see that it's important that we have EU level ambition and like harmonized approach, and this is really positive. But from the industry side, the key question is implementation, and it needs to be supported and in different means. And here we see collaboration also on governmental level. Then we have the business transformation. So in order to make the transformation, it will require investments. One could say even significant investments in circular solutions. And this, of course, means investments in recycling, new materials, repair and resell, digital solutions. And here we see that targeted support and investment incentives are actually really critical if we want to scale these solutions in Finland. And finally, also about the demand. So we see that without demand, circular solutions will not scale. So here the public procurement is an important economic instrument. And then also we see that we we need in Finland to collaborate in building consumer awareness also, in order to have all the puzzles in place and support the transition that is needed. Yeah, finalizing my presentation. So maybe as a summary, so from our perspective, we see that the transition is not only about innovation or individual initiatives, which are also really important, but it's really about aligning regulation, having the investments in place, and creating the market demand as well. And this is also actually the area where we see the biggest opportunity from regional learning, as we heard from Denmark, what you have been doing, and how these different kinds of national approaches can actually support this alignment. So thank you on my behalf.
Thank you so much, Emilia. And now we will move on from the Business Association to education and to the Talekateu network and Pirjo Heikkila. And Pirjo, maybe you can start by briefly introducing yourself and then the project.
Yes, so thank you. My name is Pirjo Heikkila. I work as Principal Scientist and Project Manager at VTT Technical Research Center of Finland. So just a few words about VTT. We are a multidisciplinary research institute, which is quite large, so we focus on all the areas. We have a strong interest in sustainable solutions and also international collaboration. But because of the short time, I focus now on the Telaketju collaboration. And at VTT, I have been opportunity to lead the textile circular research for over 10 years now. So actually it started in Relooping Fashion Initiative and Textile 2.0, but we have had the projects kind of throughout that, and it formed this Telaketju collaboration. So Telaketju is the word meaning in Finnish piece of the caterpillar track, which consists of little pieces which together form this kind of rotating thing with needs all its pieces to go around, and we kept the acronym. But it has been active collaboration network with the kind of same target for more sustainable production use and cycles of textiles, and the research work carried out in the project has been supporting then kind of formation of the textile ecosystem. I go through the uppermost row because I have been coordinating those projects. So kind of things started with the Relooping Fashion Initiative, where we built the model for how the textile ecosystem should look like and demonstrated recycling of cotton with the celluloid carbamate technology. So, but we also started collaborating with the project in Turku area, southwestern Finland, on textile recycling, and formed the first phase of Telaketju. So this was a collaboration with the different funding agencies for businesses and for non-profit organizations. So we were able to kind of include all the actors of textile value chain to focus mostly on recycling, so collect, sort, and recycle textiles. As we moved on the second phase, we had a wider scope on textile circular economy, so we included business model studies and consumer studies, of course, still supporting the emerging textile recycling ecosystem. We have built Telaketju roadmap for the future, even though it's not national, but it was kind of including a lot of Finnish actors on that, how these circular systems should look like. When we moved on to third phase of these Telaketju projects, we again widened the scope, not just textile circular economy, but more about sustainable production using bio-based and recycled materials, more sustainable business models and use, keeping products in the cycling as such, and then looked on recycling for back to textiles, but also to other products in there. During this collaboration, we have produced a vast amount of information in Finnish for the supporting the Finnish actors to take more circular approach. But we also do have English publications so that also others can see what we have learned and how we have built the ecosystem. In addition to the project which has been going on, so there has been R&D investment on the government through Business Finland and other funding agencies. There has also within this ecosystem there has been new companies like Infinited Fiber Company and Rester, who are now actors in textile recycling. But there has been also support on many other companies, and after this 11 years collaboration in Finland, mostly national level, we have more and more focused on international activities as well. So currently there is 3 quite large textile circularity themed EU project coordinated by VTT, and then many others where VTT and other Finnish actors are collaborating. But kind of mention here kind of lessons learned on regional level. We have been able to collect a network on the same-minded companies and other actors on the ecosystem, which have the similar vision and the same kind of passion to go towards more circular system. And since we have been able to get funding from different funding agencies for different kind of actors, we have been able to kind of build the foundation for this kind of business, the knowledge base for the companies and other actors, what is needed in order to move on to more circular system. And of course, Finnish textile and fashion and media has been also involved in this, and in this way we have been able to spread the information throughout the ecosystem. But that was my quick presentation of the activities which have been carried out for years now in Finland.
Thank you very much for both of you. We have a little bit of time for questions. Does anyone have questions relating to the 2 presentations? Bettina?
Yes, first of all, thank you so much for a really good presentation, or 2 good presentations. I was just wondering because it seems like you both have very good ambitions, you have really good activities, but how do you work together? Like in the Danish action plan, textile action plans, we have this good collaboration with the cluster, the industry organization, and all the academia researchers. And it seems to make so much sense when you put the ambitions and resources together, because we are small countries, one by one. And how do you work together on your really interesting plans and ambitions?
We have been collaborating throughout this. So Finnish Textile and Fashion has been a stakeholder in the research projects. And actually, since we had several the Telaketju projects ongoing at one point, we had this information sharing webinars, which after this funding ended, actually Finnish Textile and Fashion took over and continue hosting these kind of knowledge sharing webinars. So there has been a tight collaboration. Would you like to, Emilia, also comment on that?
Yeah, I could continue on that one, but yeah, and totally aligned. We are actually collaborating on different levels as well. So we have a deep collaboration between the Finnish Textile and Fashion Association and VTT, but not just only like an association level, because we also our member companies, so they collaborate like directly with VTT as well, which we find to be really good work, because then we go to practice quite fast also. So yeah, keeping each other in the loop all the time, and so a deep collaboration, and not just with VTT. We have other stakeholders as well from the research side that are part of like this same ecosystem in a way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll keep in close contact to get inspiration for the Danish National Action Plan as we roll it out on how to collaborate. But we'll move on to Sweden now, and to Michael Schreger, who's founder and executive director of the Sustainable Fashion Academy. I'd like you to just take over, Mike.
Very good. Do you hear me?
We do, loud and clear.
You do. Lovely. Okay. This has been very interesting to listen to these presentations and experts. A lot of inspiration already. I'm going to, of course, move quite quickly through so I can get to some of the conclusions that I think will add to our discussion. But we are the Sustainable Fashion Academy, a private NGO, so we're a little bit different than some of the other organizations presenting here, which is perhaps good in a sense to give a different approach and perspective, and have been working with this issue both in the Nordic region and globally for more than 15 years to drive change. So we're going to focus on today just a couple of our initiatives, but just to say what our mission is when it comes to driving change by accelerating progress to science-based sustainability targets and SDGs, by leveraging the power and influence of the apparel and textiles industry. So what I want to point out is our goal is not necessarily to have a robust apparel textiles industry that grows and develops. Our job is to use the strength of its influence to drive public good. And so it's a little bit different angle than perhaps some other initiatives or platforms. Our focus areas in SFA, which is important also, is that we're very much trying to drive a few key issues, such as measuring progress and impact. We see that there are often lots of things going on, but how do we know they're contributing to the goal? Policy with financial penalties rewards pricing in nature. Accountability and watchdogging, supporting serious companies and industry leaders, redefining progress, well-being, for instance, and regeneration, and key ideas like just transition and evidence-based decision-making are things that we try to work with consistently and with what we do. I'm going to focus on just two initiatives, mainly Stika, because Stika Plus is an add-on, just some as a means for inspiration. As many of you know, we need to reduce our GHG emissions and the apparel sector, depending on different estimates and reports, with business as usual, will continue to increase in the gigatons, and we need to, according to the science-based targets methodologies, have that by 2030. So we have the reasonings for why we are working with GHG emissions. And of course, when you're working with companies or sectors, you look at different types of scopes depending on where you're based. And in the apparel sector, if you're a brand or retailer, which many of you work with in our countries, you're looking at scope 3 emissions, which can be as much as 80 or 90% of a company's emissions. And as a rule of thumb, even though this has become incredibly hard to reach given science, we've been aimed at using this 1.5 degree Celsius goal to reduce emissions per year every decade by 2050. So these are some of the context for why we started Stika. And there are a number of different ways that you can reduce emissions. Here are some of them. Some are harder than others, like next generation materials. Some of the ones in the value chains that we work with are energy efficiency and eliminating coal and shifting to 100% renewable energy. What is not here, but is very important and can have a significant role, is circular business models if we reduce the production of virgin material. And so a company or even a sector, it would be interesting to see, could have a range of different ways that you're reducing to get there. Here is one of the ways we try to communicate the different impact areas, reduction areas that would lead to the halving of emissions by 2030. And obviously now we're getting closer to 2030 and we need to move and think about 2040 and 2050. So our mission at Stika and Stika Plus, we're an accountability and leadership platforms whose mission is to ensure the apparel industry in the Nordic region and Europe do their part to reduce climate impacts in line with 1.5, while transforming both businesses, practices, and the industry overall. Through our programs, we also look at not only greenhouse gas emissions, but also biodiversity, water, and waste in order to drive systematic change as part of our role as well. And so we're set up in this way that not only is it important to have the industry action, which is on my right here, where we need to change things at the macro level, because there's only so much you can do at the company level if you don't have the right incentives. And that was emphasized again in your national programs and in some of the suggestions on what needs to happen. But we also then have a company climate and nature action program, which tries to show how to do this in practice at the company level. And what's challenging there is that, we see where we come up against lots of challenges that need industry change, not things that can be done at the company level. But there we're looking at data collection and target setting and public commitments and reporting, transition plans and collaborative projects. So that's how Stika is set up, and Stika Plus is very similar with nature action more broadly. Here's a few of the companies in Stika and Stika Plus, and the point here is in the company program just to emphasize that we have companies mainly from Sweden, Norway, Finland, nothing from Denmark. You guys do your own thing. I love it. We'd love to have some there as well, but also could maybe inspire your action plan there. But we also have different segments from outdoor to workwear to more traditional fashion, smaller boutiques, even military clothing and home textile. So a very big mix of companies, but they seem to find it work well together, even if they have different focuses to some degree. Here we are, a few of us. Just to say with the company program, and Frederick, keep me on time here, so I make sure I'm sticking to it here. But just to say, when we're talking about what companies are required to do, they have to set these targets, and we have very clear guidelines on what's possible for target setting. Near-term targets are very important, but also we're going to be moving to net zero in the future. They need to communicate their commitments and progress publicly. They need to collect, which is important, an increasing amount of primary activity data on an annual basis, both to help them be clear on where their activities make a difference and to make integrity in their communication. They submit annual updates on their climate action transition plans. They participate in working groups, and they help us when we can in agreement come over an agreement on what we should be asking the policymakers to change and adapt with. And so our guidelines on how they should measure and report are quite extensive and are updated on an annual basis with the changes. And this allows for integrity and seriousness in the initiatives. And you can see an example of how they report to us, and then we report out every year what their reductions are or lack thereof and how they're doing. And this will become actually quite more extensive in the coming year. We have more KPIs that we'll be reporting on. I think what's very important here is targets. Setting targets is only one aspect of showing progress. And you need to show actual reductions and actions that you're doing. So that's how we do that. In our report, you'll see 80 different indicators. Here's just one of the kinds of things that they're doing to reduce their emissions often in their scope 3 supply chains. And you get a sense. We track every year how the group is doing and how individual companies are doing to hold them accountable. And as I said, we have working groups. So this is the action, and we've had 156 people from 51 Stika companies active in these different types of working groups. A big part of it is in our energy efficiency and renewable energy working groups in different countries, but we have circular business models, we have collection and reporting around software and tools, we have materials, etc. So that's how they also engage beyond the webinars and other support we provide them. There are lots of challenges to overcome, and I'm not going to go into all these, and these probably are things you recognize. I can point out problems with data quality and transparency. Lack of economic incentives is what I think is a key driver for all of these. It's challenging to eliminate coal. There's all sorts of challenges in production countries with lack of renewable energy on grids. It's a very challenging area. And again, by working with the companies, we're able to clearly state, okay, here's what they're able to do, and here's what they're not, given the situation. And you can find a range of our highlights in our latest report on things that we've been tracking. And this is a nice way of looking at how's the data quality, what targets are they setting, how are the emissions being reduced, are they working with just transition, are they policy engaged, etc. Stika Plus broadens beyond greenhouse gases to biodiversity, water, and waste. So we're working with those in a similar model. And biodiversity, can be broken down into land use and other things. So we have targets that we're working on in each of these areas as well. Some key conclusions, without going into all of them, is that we have now shown for medium and smaller companies as well as big. We have H&M, but we also have many medium and smaller companies which represent a majority of those in Europe and probably in your countries, that there's no excuse not to act on climate. You can reduce your emissions. There's just, you can do it, and you can do it strategically. The data, of course, in our work is challenging. How a lot of it is average data. We need to keep working on that and such. They've come a long way in a short time. In around 6 years, there's been a huge jump in sophistication in working with climate, but it takes time for these actions to yield the results. But it's too slow. We all know that. All these things are too slow. The incentives are not great enough to move at a faster pace. Short-term financial growth and the lack of sufficient financial incentives make reductions difficult. Commercial companies are expected to grow commercially, and that can undermine that. And diluted EU climate legislation, which we think the omnibus has simplifying was good, but taking it away was not good. And that we can discuss. We think ultimately financial penalties are needed for not reducing emissions and rewards for reducing them. And other things like well-being and sufficiency need to be considered seriously as a success indicator. Our policy engagement at the industry level is varied, but extremely important. These are just two things we've done around simplification and lower VAT in Sweden, but we also have policy work around the Circular Economy Action Plan with detailed stuff on what we think the EPR should have and how it should work. Also now about the ESPR at the EU level. So we work towards the EU and towards the countries which we're operating in the company program. And you can learn more about us, a great deal more, in our report. Happy to share that. I just wanted to say that there are lots of Swedish initiatives that address sustainability, and I was given the ability not to go through all of them here because there's a lot to talk about. But there are lots of organizations similar to other doing different interesting things, and I have some strong opinions on what would help us unify them. Because they've been this way for many years, lots of people doing their own thing, having different constituencies, but very good stuff happening with my colleagues in Sweden, and we can talk about that. I think if I was to end in terms of our discussion that's coming in the panel, there's a few things at a high level I would say are very important, and this links a little bit to the question about to the Danish action plan about production and overconsumption, which I think was a good thing to raise about trace and how you're going to measure success. I really think that lots of times we talk about strategies and things to do, but do we really have a sense of what success looks like sustainability-wise? And we think that these strategies need to be built on fundamental goals and indicators that are informed by science, sustainability science, and evidence, and should be tracked, right? I also want to say that from our perspective, circularity as a term is used all the time, but it's not necessarily sustainability, as you know. So we need to be clear what we mean by circularity, what we're trying to achieve. We think that, and this could work at the Nordic level, that there needs to be an independent data-driven organization or initiative that is tasked with measuring and monitoring progress towards the goals and targets. And that's why I was excited to hear about Trace and its potential role in the Danish action plan. And then I think when we're clear on what success looks like, then national and regional strategies can be proposed, assessed, and refined. Ultimately, though, we need to take a look at what the larger drivers of problems are here. And our view is that the market's failure to price in externalities such as the environment or social value means that this is a more complex, challenging issue. I think we need to hold two things in our head at once. One is how do we balance the need for helping companies and established organizations today reduce their impacts and stay competitive, while at the same time creating the incentives for transformation of our industry, where sustainability goals are what define success. And finally, I think it's important that textile industry and national strategies are viewed from a broader perspective, where the most important stakeholders are not just commercial apparel and textile companies and their owners and their investors, but also the workers we depend on and who depend on us, the natural resources, the consumers and citizens who are affected by the industry for good and bad. Often those in our industry who have the power to drive policy advocacy are simply those who are the company industry organizations. And that, I think, is a narrow view of what a way that we should be assessing success. So I hope that gives you a little inspiration for our dialogue to come.
Thank you very much, Michael. That was very inspiring and a lot of information. We have time for a couple of minutes before we move on to the conversation, and I think probably some of the topics within the conversation will tie back to your presentation. But does anyone have any questions for Michael's presentation?
Well, it seems that there's something in the text there. Tona, I knew you were going to ask another question about this. We don't have set limits on production right now for the company program. I think there's a balance here in what commercial companies are willing to do and stay in reporting to us. But at the level of the industry, it can be something that we are advocating for. It would be nice to talk to you how that would look and what we would do. I think we would sort of look at volumes and say, what should be reduced. But right now we have to link that to obviously commercial success for the companies. But I think it's more of at the policy level where we could have that discussion, and that comes a little bit back to this important idea of overconsumption and overproduction that was raised in the Danish action plan. How will you actually measure that? Will you look at volumes and how much volumes are needed to be reduced to achieve sustainability goals? So that, I think, is the key.
Are there any other questions? Because if there are not, then I think we'll move on to the forum for questions or for dialogue here. We'll move on to the moderated conversation with all of you presenters and the audience as well, where we'll dive deeper into the question that we started asking in the beginning with what can we learn from national strategic initiatives from a regional development perspective. And this obviously is a super good forum for that, because we have a lot of the national players who work with strategic national initiatives. And Kali, who is a key member of the Nordic Baltic Textile Transition Group and who has a foot both in Estonia and in Denmark. She's a assistant professor at Aalborg University, and she's the founder of Revaluate. You'll be moderating the conversation, Kali, and trying to connect the dots between the Nordics and the Baltics. Probably you will also be a little more fluent in the nationalities of our participants. I very much apologize, Dartse, for getting that wrong. So without any more introduction, Kali, I think would you chalk up the playing field for the conversation and begin it?
Yes, thank you, Frederick, and thank you for all the
interesting and strong presentations about the national initiatives in Finland, Denmark, and Sweden. Definitely ambitious. A lot of significant funding goes to these areas, and the question is like, okay, what impact it does actually have? So yes, my name is Köölikand Väs. I'm Estonian, but I've been working across the Nordic Baltic region the last 15 plus years. And this agenda here, I think I can see and sense and hear that bringing the Nordic initiatives into the same room is already quite valuable. But this is the Nordic Baltic initiative here, which is extremely relevant as well. So I'm pushing that towards the Baltic region now with my Baltic hat on. And a personal story, when I 25 years ago moved to Denmark, I was very surprised. I saw these textile collection bins on the streets. I had no clue why are these there. Why would people put clothes in there? But then I shortly realized that these were actually the clothes that I was buying as a teenager and also my family and friends. So Nordics collecting their textiles became were sent to East and South. And at the same time, my mom working in the textile industry and producing brands like Philippa K and several Nordic fashion brands. So this region is quite connected and still is. However, when we also myself, when I work across the region, I interact with many different stakeholders in the Baltics. Follow the research across the region and different initiatives, then I do feel that things are discussed in silos quite often, and we lack this kind of a more regional discussion, because now with the EU policy, all these countries are facing the same challenges. I think countries are also realizing that the national initiatives become quite limited to actually be compliant and bring that transition in. So yes, we have been pushing this agenda with Nordic Baltic regional approach with Tats and Victoria. Tats are from Lithuania and Latvia, and Victoria from Lithuania. They're also here today. And as Frederick said, this is just a very short discussion, and we will have more opportunities to take these topics further. We will have a Nordic Baltic Circularity Summit or Forum in October in Riga, so where these topics will be addressed more. Anyway, but to come back to this room here. So yes, what can we learn from these initiatives? I know many of you, I think, Mike, I know you the longest from 2011, from the Mr. Future Fashion. I've been working with Pirjo and Telaketju, bringing this knowledge to the Baltic region in 2018. So these are all great initiatives, but how do we, in 2026, actually learn from those? Are these national... I'm like curious from the critical point as well, like are these national initiatives actually designed to collaborate? Like what are the areas based on your experiences? Like where do you see, where can you, what are the activities that are hardest to scale nationally based on these initiatives you have been now working? And this is a broad question to all of you. So I will give the floor. Who wants to start? So how can we learn? What can we take from this, that from a Danish, Finnish, or Swedish perspective to the regional perspective? What are the initiatives or what are the themes that are hard to collaborate or hard to reach nationally? And where do you see the potential for the collaboration the most? And there is one topic I want to leave for a little later, which is employment and circularity. So I will zoom into that. But so first, a bit broader question. Who would like to start? I can see Bettina is ready.
Yes, I'm so ready. Thank you so much, Kali. Well, first of all, it's interesting to see also in the Danish National Action Plan how we have talked a lot about how to coordinate nationally. So many initiatives going on just in Denmark. And I can see from all the different slides that in each of the Nordic countries, we have so much going on. So to be able to coordinate and kind of divide it into themes of what is going on, so we can keep on learning from each other. So we don't in Denmark start up another project that actually been going on in Sweden or in Latvia. So I think if we somehow could build on the knowledge and the project initiatives that's already been going on, and then we would do, as Marie told you, we would do the national textile stream analysis. And that could actually be nice to do both because Denmark, I don't know who said that comment, we are just a small country and we cannot just work within the borders. So it'd be nice to have an overview of the Nordic and Baltic. How do the streams, textile stream go? Because we know they move around. Also, resale. It could be also, we know that there's a lot of interesting initiative on repair going on in Norway and Sweden, so it's just been nice to see the overall textile stream, where is it going and how much is the volume we're talking about. We're talking about also public procurement in Denmark, but what is it, the level in Sweden, in Norway, in the Baltic countries and so on. That could be interesting to see what is the same amount, but what is also the difference, and maybe we can learn from also the textile streams and analysis. That's at least one of the points I think could be really interesting in this forum to share, and then if we could divide up the initiatives in some kind of different topic themes, and then see what is the most important ones, and how can we make sure we learn from this knowledge, all of us. Thank you.
Great. I'm just following quickly up on this one because this is a very valid point here. But what does it take, or what are we missing today that this is not happening, even not within the Nordics? Because there has been quite a bit of initiatives earlier. Nordic Council of Ministers has tried to initiate, and so what do you think from your experience? What is still lacking? Is there like a one central body who should organize it, or what does it take to lift it together? Because we don't have more time to just start nationally and then building this, because time is over.
Yeah, there was this word, I think the Danish EPR was the project lead. There was this initiative, but 1 year after, it's already old data. So we need someone who take the responsibility to kind of report in or point from their national point of view. These are really important new. They got funding. It could be EU funding. It could be national funding, private funding. But as soon as data is after 1 year, it's not an update overview. So we need someone to be appointed to do that, and that could be this forum or whatever. But I always get so surprised when I meet your Nordic and Baltic colleagues to hear about all these amazing initiatives going on. So yeah, so I just think it's continuation of someone who's taking the lead in that.
Consolidating what is in the region instead of building new initiatives and reports. Okay, Elsa, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for facilitating this, Callie. So I think this has been said more times that within our individual countries, there's a lot of silos between different stakeholders, and how this is very unfortunate. And it's even more so between our countries. I see an opportune moment with amongst other things, the EPR, to try to look at a Nordic-Baltic infrastructure. And with infrastructure, I mean both like hard infrastructure, which is logistics, small-scale production and textile like facilities, small-scale factories, sorting plants, where we could have these textile flow flows more in our countries than sending them in all sorts of weird places around the world, because we actually don't need to. But this would require that we also discuss very thoroughly who has the strongholds for what. So instead of every country wanting to do everything in the Nordic Baltic region, we need maybe to focus on what are we actually good at in each country? What are our traditions? What is going on? What kind of production do we have? I can say Denmark, we have almost none, whereas quite a lot of smaller fashion and textile brands have been taking production back to the Baltic countries, which is super great because it's much closer. So there could be actually, if we do this ecosystem or infrastructure more together, we could use each other much more than we do now, I think. I think it has, and also we know from many SMEs that they could actually gain from producing more close by in smaller scales, because they're forced to overproduce when they are in the global value chains. There's a huge pressure for them to make more units. So there are some obvious gains. Another thing is then, of course, the soft infrastructure, which is knowledge sharing, which is what we do here. And it's been done too little. So simply the fact that you guys who are making this network are setting it up, I think is maybe where we can catch up again after maybe 20 years of lost opportunity. So I just want to thank you, because we need to share brains and resources and now, and I think there's just a lot of things. But of course, if you ask for the barriers, politicians always want to do something for their own country. So that's of course one barrier. So we need, and we cannot even make our own ministries talk together. So we have to do it for them.
This is very valid points. Yes, like are these national strategies actually designed to collaborate, or are they mainly to showcase the national leaderships?
I don't think they are. Yeah, but we could maybe make them into by simply this fact that we don't have, and this is the initiative 2.2 that we were talking about with the textile flows, is also to investigate what would be clever for us in Denmark to invest in, or for example facilities. And there's no use we invest a lot of stuff in something that is right across the water in Sweden, right? Or very close by.
Absolutely, yeah. And that actually, the latest European Environmental Agency report, that Just Transition to Circular Economy, highlights the share of circularity jobs, and the Baltic region stands in the highest. Estonia actually has the highest, 7.9% jobs in circularity, while Denmark is the lowest, below 1.5. And then when listening to this national initiatives, then this raises the question, we do have infrastructure in the Baltics. Humana is doing quite a bit already for the preparation for reuse. So you also raise a valid point that we should look beyond the borders of the national borders, and like, okay, what do we have? What capacity infrastructure we already have? Instead of start investing into silo solutions. And I see that from the Baltic side, that Estonia wants to set up the sorting automated sorting facilities we have in Sweden, not operating fully. We have in Denmark, also struggling with some areas of uptake markets. So we definitely need this. Anyway, I can see two hands, and I'll give. I know Dad said we will have a chance to discuss, and you will be after Mike. Mike will have a comment.
Okay. Yeah, no, I, of course, think it's a no-brainer that if we could find a way to centrally share information around very specific topics, we would gain a great deal, right? We've had programs like Mr. Future Fashion on the research side that have been set up to do that. Whether that they were effective is another question, but that makes plenty of sense, that we should be aware of and learning from the insights and not duplicating the wheel, redoing the wheel here. I think, though, that, again, I want to keep pressing my message, which is, what do we know what success looks like? It doesn't seem clear to me that we've had that discussion. right? So are we talking about, we have proxy indicators we keep talking about, which how much clothing is reused. Okay, what are we saying? Where do we want to be in 10 years as a Nordic region? Do we want to have clear goals for greenhouse gas emissions and water and green jobs? Because I think that there's a lot of talk about these things that we make assumptions that they're going to be useful, like even producing locally. But the question is, how do we assess these initiatives and both socially, environmentally, and economically? The recycling world, as many would argue, is just the financial incentives for that are apparently, as I understand, not very good. And so we can keep creating ideas of pilot programs to recycle stuff, but if we don't address the policy levers, we may never ever scale those things. So I think it's very important that and I think it's a great use of this collaboration potentially at the research side, that we maybe work on trying to have an independent organization help us identify what success looks like and what indicators we would use to assess progress. And then we would maybe have a more focused discussion when we're talking about what to focus on, who can do what best, where investments should be made. That I think would be very helpful, even if challenging. The second point I would make is it's interesting, this idea of collaboration and coordination feels right? It's like we want to not duplicate efforts, but there's also something to be said for innovation, that different organizations go before others to test things and aren't always in coordination. So I think, again, having an idea of what success looks like and be more flexible on how we get there could be also a principle to drive work together. So those are just some quick thoughts.
A very, very valid point, and I agree. And I see time is running, but I guess the comment, like what success looks like, it's a topic for another webinar. But what is really happening on the ground is that we do have the regulation that is shaping quite fast the management of clothes, and this will also define the success, because we do see that a lot of textiles these days get collected and actually just incinerated. Or not properly managed. So we have a lot of regulatory pressure that also is influencing what the success could be like. So we have both regions could collaborate on this and align, and like eco-modulation fees, should they be nationally discussed or should they be regionally discussed, because used textiles are processed in Baltics, the Nordic textiles. Anyway, that has a hand up, but I know Frederick is looking at me that we have 3 minutes left. So this was just the very beginning of discussing very important and strategic and very urgent topics. Very happy that this platform exists today. As I said, we do have a chance to continue this. We're going to have a bigger event in Riga, 7th and 8th of October, Nordic Baltic Textile Circularity Forum. We will bring many of these topics and you also engaging you in this conversation. So stay tuned and mark that in calendars. Thank you, LDC, giving the opportunity to moderate this. And 2 minutes left. I give the word back to you, Frederick.
Thank you, everyone, to the presenters and to you in listening in and asking questions, and to tie into what Kali said. This is the beginning of hopefully forming the structure of better collaborations. And I know from our part at Lifestyle and Design Cluster, we're going to reach out to you, Michael, with the parallels that run clearly between the voluntary sector collaboration on textiles and the sticker initiatives. I know you and Jonas have been talking in the past, but I think this is a really, really good opportunity to get introduced to people you need to talk to, and we need to grow that. And a good way to do that for everyone, if you haven't already, and your network, your extended network, is to join our mailing list. If you want to get information about the Riga event, about future events, have the opportunity to write about topic ideas, then please write me. This is pretty low key, but write your name, your email, your organization, and your title, along with your country, and send it to my mail address, which is frederick@ldcluster.com. Because if you do so, then you will be looped in, and we hope that the rings in the water will spread, and that we'll involve a lot more people, and that we can all collaborate on shaping this and getting to do with this forum what we want to do with this forum. And you're all part of that, and your networks are part of that. So please help spread the message. And from my part, I really look forward to the next webinar, to the next conversations. And based on the conversation today, it sounds like there's plenty of room for many of them. We're on time. We wish we had more time, but we'll carve that out next time. So have a great Monday. Thank you so much. Mange tak til alle.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.